I now call the May 2nd, 2023 Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:45. Consideration of claims. Chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the claims.
Your Honor, I make a motion for the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $414,906.53, manual check in the amount of $1,860.48, payroll and liabilities for April 21st, 23 in the amount of $459,770.35 for a total of $876,537.36.
So moved.
Thank you. Are there any amendments or discussion on the claims? Anybody? I don't have any. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Is there anything additional that the committee needs to review or to discuss?
No, Your Honor, I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, we will adjourn at 6:46.
I call the May 2nd, 2023 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Would Council Member Borders lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then the invocation will be by Council Member Larson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our eternal Heavenly Father, we are thankful for the opportunity to be here and to represent the citizens of Riverton. We're thankful for moderating temperatures, thankful for beautiful skies, and thankful for living in this part of thy vineyard. Father, we're thankful for the first responders that protect us and the availability of people that help. We would ask this night, Father, that thou would bless us with insight and understanding that we might do thy will for the benefit of thy citizens. We're thankful for all our blessings and say this, name thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 All right. Well, would the city clerk please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilwoman Lindsay Cox. Here. Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilman Dean Peranto.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury. Here. Mayor Tim Hancock.
I am here, and I declare that we have a quorum. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as it has been presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Borders and second by Councilman Peranto. Any discussion or amendments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye, motion passes. Communication from the floor, citizens' comments. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak on something that's scheduled for a public hearing, if you don't have the agenda, they're out there on the table. You'll be given an opportunity to speak during the public hearing. If you want to speak on a different item that's not listed for a public hearing, you're definitely welcome. Come up to the podium, tell us your name, who you're associated with, and you have the floor. I would ask if you're an individual who'd like to speak, try to keep your comments to about 5 minutes. If you're part of a group, if you can split it up between all members of your group for about 10 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak? Okay, well, that was a long explanation for nothing. Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, April 18th, 2023, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, May 2nd, 2023, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations for May 2nd, 2023.
Are there any other items that require further discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes.
the Finance Committee met earlier before the meeting, and we agreed to consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $414,906.53. Manual check in the amount of $1,860.48. Payroll and liabilities for 4/21/23 in the amount of $459,770.35 for a total of $876,537.36.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as has been presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Larson, second by Councilwoman Cox. Any discussion or amendments?
Your Honor, I'd like to abstain from any warrants paid to traveling computers or WyoNet.
Okay. Anything else? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Building Safety Month Proclamation. All right. I have here a proclamation for the month of May, and I will just read this. Whereas our city is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential role our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas Our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas it starts with you, the theme for Building Safety Month 2023 encourages us all to raise awareness about building safety on a personal, local, and global scale. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the communities, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, I, Tim Hancock, Mayor of the City of Riverton, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2023 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, I encourage our citizens to join us as we participate in Building Safety Month activities. All right. Is there anything else about that? You don't want to have a speech right now, Mr. Miller, or?
I believe you took the floor there.
Oh. Well, you could talk about it more if you'd like. You have 5 minutes. All right. Next up on the agenda, Wind River Visitors Council budget. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. As per the norm, this is your opportunity to approve the annual budget for the Wind River Visitors Council. You do belong to the Joint Powers Board, and it's required that you consider and approve the budget. We are very pleased to have Ms. Helen Wilson here today, the Executive Director. I'm sure she will have a few thoughts to share with you at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Go ahead.
Hi, Helen Wilson, Wind River Visitors Council, and we also have Julie Buller, Kit Post, and Owen Sweeney from the Board of Directors here. Thank you for having us here. So we have had another record-breaking lodging tax year. We are seeing very high numbers. It's been a really wonderful year for tourism. We have been following trends, following what's going on in the world, trying to make predictions for the coming months. We gave you this year a very large packet. I believe it was 14 pages. We want to be completely transparent and provide you with all of the information that we have available. So last year we switched the way that we did our budget. We moved to a system where we used the full previous fiscal year's revenue as the budget for the following year. That worked out really well this year. The Chamber of Commerce in Riverton knew exactly how much they were getting, which made it so that they could budget accordingly. What it means for this coming up year, 2023 to 2024, is that there will be more money for TAD because last year was that massive record-breaking year. So this current year, Riverton brought in 32.2% of the lodging tax, and this year, the current year, that came to $64,743 in TAD money. The upcoming year will be $81,837, so it's a really significant increase there. Some things that have changed on the budget, or some things that are a little bit different. We have budgeted more money because we are making more money for the audit. We used to have to do a CPA financial review. This past year was the first year we've ever had to do an audit, and we actually came out with a very clean audit. We were told it was unheard of how clean it was. So we were really happy with that, but we are going to need another audit this coming year. So there's a large amount of money put aside for the audit. which is the $18,000. We've also increased the budget line for conference attendance. We have found that it's really good for us to be at conferences. It's good for us to be representing Wind River country. And in past years, we've committed to going to the two big ones in Wyoming, but we're looking at adding in the American Indian one, some international ones, and a few others. So we have increased the conference attendance line, which would include trade shows as well. We've also increased our press trips and FAM tours. We have been doing a lot of press trips and FAM tours this year. It's been really exciting. We just had a group come for 4 days, explore our area from the Wyoming Office of Tourism visitor centers throughout the state. There were 12 people in a bus, and they just left this morning. So that was a really fun thing to do with them. Meeting and marketing for the conferences, that budget line has increased because we'll be attending more conferences, and we have increased the international budget as well as increased the air service marketing by $10,000. And all of this is because we had a record-breaking year last year. So we went from $729,500 in lodging tax the previous year to $1,016,610. And we're looking like the current fiscal year, when it ends, will be probably slightly below that $1 million mark, but we are anticipating that next year will be just as wonderful. I've also included in your packet a description. This is something we haven't done in the past of what the numbers are and why we've come up with those numbers. And I already mentioned the CPA audit, so we'll be doing the second year there. In November, we did have a lodging tax vote. 72% voted in favor of renewing. I did look up what the Riverton specific percentage was, and it was actually 72.99, so almost a whole point higher than the average for the county. Lots of numbers on here, but in Fremont County, 2022, tourism directly supported 1,665 jobs. And travel trends for 2023, consumers are booking vacations earlier. There's an increase in international travel. Travel costs are on the rise. There's an increase in off-season travel, and there is an increase in off-grid travel and connecting with nature. I've also included in your packet this chart, which we looked at last year, and that shows you where we got the budget for 2022 to 2023 to 2024 at the $1,016,610.77. Some of the highlights from this year, we've been working with CWC on a tourism study of Fremont and Hot Springs counties. The thing that I'm really hopeful for with this is that we'll get some strong data that will help us apply for future grants. So whatever is identified, we can use on grant applications, which will be really exciting. Something else that happened this year is the Wyoming Office of Tourism released a destination development program to the lodging tax boards, and the Wind River Visitors Council is one of those lodging tax boards. This is money that needs to be spent between now and the end of 2024. So we've identified some projects, and they are listed at the bottom of the Joint Powers budget. You'll see that there's a section that says Destination Development. And what we really tried to do was look at each community and what people have been talking about wanting and needing, and put together a plan for that. So that's on there as well. The big ones for Riverton are increasing, a digital sign in Riverton, as well as an art banner project expansion. So the art banners throughout town, Hal Heron, one of the board members, is working on expanding those, as well as putting an additional one in Hudson. We also had the Riverton Community Celebration. That was back in January, and that was lots of fun. And we've been working with community members throughout the county on the Wyoming Outdoor Recreation Grant, which is the American Rescue Plan Act, which is often called the ARPA funding. And we are fully committed and excited about local organizations applying for that money. So I've been getting updates from the Wyoming Office of Outdoor Recreation and spreading those updates around to try to get as many local grants applied for as we possibly can. We've also helped with a couple of videos in Riverton, and we have had, and I just put a bunch of links on here, which I think if you're PDFs, you should be able to click on them. But we have had absolutely incredible media coverage the past year. We've been sending out lots of press releases. We've been applying for various awards. We actually applied to the Sunset Travel Awards and were recognized and got the award for the most remarkable outdoor recreation region. So that's in Sunset Magazine for 2022. So we've been using that a lot in our marketing campaigns. And what we've noticed with that is when we have that as the headline in any online marketing campaign, it gets lots and lots of attention. We've just noticed that the hits for those on the website just go way, way, way up. I think that was about all I have for a presentation. I am sure that there are questions. We do this every year, and it's always great to see you. I'm also happy to let any of our board members put in a word or two if they'd like to.
And this budget, has this already been approved by the board?
This was approved by the board at our March board meeting, and it's been approved by Hudson as well. It needs to go to all of the joint powers. After Hudson, you're the first. So we've got we've got Lander and Du Bois next week, and then the county commissioners in early June, and we don't yet have a scheduled date for Shoshone. But Hudson has approved it, and the board of directors have approved it.
Your Honor,
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question. So the digital sign for Riverton's 50,000, where some of them are 34,000?
Yes.
Is that the difference in the sign? That's my first question. And the second one is, with the Wind River Heritage Center now being part of the chamber and stuff, is there any monies or any discussion with the Wind River Visitor Council of maybe helping make that updated and stuff?
Updated, yeah. Well, okay, so first off, the sign. When we looked at the money for the destination development funds with the board, I suggested some projects and then got input from the board members representing the various communities. The sign in Riverton, they want a really, really big sign outside of the Wind River Heritage Center, and it's going to cost quite a bit more than $50,000. I think I had another project on here, and the decision was to move that money into a bigger sign. But the sign is going to cost more than the $50,000, but that's what we're going to contribute to it. And I don't know exactly. It's every time I talk to them, it seems to get bigger. So it's going to be a big sign outside the Heritage Center. And as for the money for the Heritage Center, I'm hoping because there's a lot of extra TAD money. There's $20,000 or so extra TAD money for this year. That money can help with that. Because it is lodging tax money, there are only certain places that it can be spent. So it's for marketing, it's for tourism, which of course is the Wind River Heritage Center. I'm really excited about that development. But it couldn't build things like a bathroom at the Wind River Heritage Center or infrastructure. But the destination development money has a different set of rules, which is how a sign can be purchased as well as art banners. Does that answer your question in a very long way?
Anybody else? Well, when I was on the council previously, I hardly knew that, what the Wind River Visitors Council was, what it all entailed, why we have it, that sort of thing. Been around since 1980s.
89.
89. I just had an opportunity to look at the Joint Powers Agreement, and it's interesting because the Joint Powers Agreement came about because of the statute at the time that required it. And now you actually don't have to have one, I think. I don't know. It's interesting. I've been looking into it, kind of curious. I can't even, the statute that required it was repealed in 1998, so I can't even find what it said because it's an old statute. So, but it's been interesting, and I guess just as I was looking at it, I think just for people to know how this works is that we have lodging tax from folks as they're staying in hotels here. That lodging tax then, by agreement of the joint powers, so that's Riverton, Hudson, Shoshone, Du Bois, Lander. And Fremont County, yeah, they don't count. And Fremont County. And so, Kip's here, so I guess I shouldn't say that. So by agreement, we basically, in order to be able to have more bang for our buck, so to speak, we're pulling all the money together so that we can have an organization, can have more buying power, more ability to market. I mean, and that's been kind of the way things have been moving, is saying you're going to market an area more than necessarily an individual location, perhaps. But one of the things I was noticing as I reviewed this is that the board is supposed to be providing us with reports detailing its activities and expenditures on a quarterly basis. So I think it's great that we get to hear from you for the budget, but I do think we want to have that ongoing, coming in quarterly and making sure we're getting reports. And that could be you, or it could be the board itself. I mean, that says the board, but I think when you're the executive director, you can provide that report. So I guess I just would encourage that you know, that's what we should be having, and I think it would be good for everybody to know what's going on. It feels like we talk about the Wind River Visitors Council once a year, and then we don't talk about it again for another year.
Yep. And I understand that, and I hear what you're saying, and I actually put together an executive director's report every other month, and I am happy to add you to the list of people that it goes to.
So anyway, that just was part of what I wanted to talk about with it. And then it's supposed to be proposed, the budget's supposed to be presented no later than May 10th, so we're here, May 2nd, plenty of time. And then it has to be approved no later than June 30th. So number one, I really appreciate that you're here and you're presenting on it. But I would say we don't have to act on it today. If we want to act on it and approve the budget as it is, we can do that. If we want to wait and vote on it later, if there's questions that we want to ask that we're not wanting to ask from the dais now, we could ask those and come back. I just got an email with some questions, for example, that Du Bois had. Anyway, I guess at this point, that's my soapbox on it, and really appreciate all you do, Helen.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just wanted to get some of those questions answered. So we can act on this now, or we can act on it later. It's really at the pleasure of the council, so I'd entertain any motions.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I would think that this much data needs digesting. I would move that we table this and look at it and vote on it next meeting so that we're still compliant and that we have the understanding that we have a quarterly report back.
We don't have to have a motion because we don't have any motion on the floor right now. So
Those are my thoughts.
we could just stick it on the next agenda if we wanted. Any other thoughts?
Good.
Do we want to approve it today? Do we want to approve it later?
Your Honor, I tend to agree with Councilman Larson. I'd like a little time to digest it, kind of pick over it a little bit. Maybe vote on it next meeting.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay,
I agree.
we can do that. And you could come again if you want, Helen. But you wouldn't have to necessarily present the same thing if that's what we did. Maybe just so we could cover any questions. And then I guess if we have any questions before then, we could probably just email you Would that work?
Absolutely. And you can email me anytime. We really do try to provide information whenever people have questions. So it doesn't just have to be during budget hearing season, which it becomes a season, it feels like.
Yeah. Almost a holiday.
One more thing. I was told by a close friend of mine that there was another group of individuals that had money for a digital sign. Are you the only one looking at that?
I believe that that might be the match. So we are putting in $50,000 for it, and Hal Heron has been working with a couple of other people in Riverton to provide the rest of the funding. And I want to say it's Mike Martin, but, Julie, yeah. Wind River Development? Yeah. Okay.
It's Mike Martin, and then they actually have proposed that when we came out with this initial request, or Helen put her initial proposal together, and Winter Development had said, hey, if they'll match this 50%, then they will put this big digital sign. And what Mike's working on is the same trouble that we had.
Come on up to the mic,
Probably should come up, Julie. We just had somebody who complained that Dean needs to get closer to the mic, so you're pretty far away over there.
So what Mike's exploring is the location and, YDOT and all those things right now to determine where it can go. So it is a Wind River Development Group that's providing.
That was my second question. Where?
We don't know.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
I think it would be great to have it right there if we want to have that be a bigger entrance into town at the Wind River Heritage Center.
Originally, Wind River Development wanted it right there at the end of Main Street. And when he first came to me, Mike, I said, we've already tried that with other signs, so I don't think that's going to happen. But he thought he had some pull with YDOT, but it didn't work. So I don't know exactly what he's exploring right now, but I can certainly reach out to him and find out.
Great.
And then we can pass that information back to you. But yeah, the location where we're at now with the new chamber, that would be great.
And that's not even really, that's kind of an ancillary part of the budget because it's part of the Destination Development Funds, so.
Right.
And it needs to be spent by the end of June 2024, so we have some time, and I realize time goes by quickly, but I feel like we're ahead on most of these projects.
Well, and I really appreciate you having this here for us to review. I know a complaint when I was on the council before was we just kind of had to get it done and had to approve it right away, and I appreciate getting a little bit more time to look at it and consider it, and then if we have questions, we can send them to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. All right, moving on. Consideration of Ordinance 23003, third and final reading, adoption of National Electrical Code. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 23003 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 23-003 on third and final reading. An ordinance amending Title 15, Building Construction, Chapter 15.04, Building Construction and Maintenance Codes, Section 15.04.010, Adoption, Applicability, Filing, subsection Title A10 of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 23003 on the third and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson with the motion, Councilwoman Salisbury with the second. Any discussion or amendments? All right, would the city clerk please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lindsay Cox.
Aye.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Aye.
Councilman Dean Pronto.
Aye.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Aye.
Mayor Tim Hancock.
I vote aye. Motion passes. On to ordinance number 23005, third and final reading. I guess on my script it still says possession, but use of counterfeit currency. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 23005 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 23-005 on third and final reading. An ordinance amending Title IX, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare to revise Chapter 9.08, Offenses Against Public Peace and Decency, adding Section 9.08.020, Use of Counterfeit Currency of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 23005 on third and final reading.
So moved. Second.
Councilman Bailey with the motion, Councilman Paranto with the second. Any discussions or amendments? Okay. City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Aye.
Councilman Lindsay Cox.
Aye.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Aye.
Councilman Dean Pronto.
Aye.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Aye.
Mayor Tim Hancock.
I vote aye. Motion passes. All right, now what everybody has been waiting for. I don't know, I could say that about any item because these are all exciting. Edge Committee half-cent funding recommendations, Finance Director's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. For the benefits, excuse me, for the benefit of the folks in our audience and for our listeners, I'm going to provide a little bit of background about the 0.5%. Following the approval of the 0.5% economic development tax, the council established the EDGE Committee, Evolve, Diversify, and Grow Our Economy, through Resolution Number 1422, adopted September 1st, 2020. At its January 3rd, 2023 regular city council meeting, the council approved the 2023 EDGE Committee mayoral appointments of its 7 board members and 2 alternates. The funding application period opened on March 1st and closed on March 31st of this year. The information was published on the city's website and social media page and announced at city council meetings and the Let's Talk Fremont radio show. It was also shared with local media outlets. The committee received funding applications from 8 entities totaling $664,916. The EDGE Committee met on April 13th and heard presentations from each applicant. The committee met the following week on April 20th and had a nice hearty discussion regarding the request to make funding recommendations. The staff has not conducted work towards verification of the submitted applications or claims made by the applicants or feasibility of the proposed projects. However, we will acquire additional information at the council's direction. The report includes a spreadsheet providing the applicant information, project description, funding request, projects totals, and recommended funding. And the applications are included in their entirety in your packet, so you've all had the opportunity, hopefully, to review those. The committee recommended the following 4 entities for EDGE funding. Brown Sugar Coffee Roastery, and recommended funding was $196,000. High Country Fungus LLC for $30,380. Riverton Ice Hockey Association for $25,174. And the Golden Buffalo for $26,500, for a total of $278,054 in grant funding. If directed to develop funding agreements, the staff will coordinate with the applicants to provide any arrangements. And then the committee is also scheduled to open up another application period at a later date to be determined. The council may fund the applicants as desired, so long as the funding applications meet the parameters of the law and the ballot language. Funding will be allocated from the 0.5% tax for economic development as it becomes available, and the current balance of monies available is $339,742. We do have some EDGE Committee members in the audience, and I would stand for any questions that you may have, or if you'd like to speak with them.
Okay. Well, I guess I'd start by saying, generally speaking, when we have discussion, we're going to have a motion, which we didn't do very well with our last item. We could have a motion to approve these requests as presented, then discuss it, and then decide if we want to amend it or change any of the proposed funding. So I guess I'm just leaving that open. Or you could make a motion that's just how you think it should be funded. So you can entertain a motion right now.
Your Honor, I'd move to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay. Councilwoman Cox with the motion, Councilwoman Salisbury with the second. So that would be just as we have it in the packet then? Okay. Discussion on that.
Your Honor, can I just ask one of the committee members why the rendezvous city beef roundup didn't fit the ramifications?
And any one of you can come up and talk as you like. if you could just tell the public your name and...
Hi, I'm Janet Winslow. I got that too close. And I'm on the EDGE committee. And the Beef Roundup, which is a fabulous event, didn't qualify because it didn't quite meet the letter. And oftentimes when the letter of the bill, and oftentimes when that happens, the committee will recommend other sources for those groups to go to. And we, for the Beef Roundup, we really would love to get them funded. And we guided them on maybe restructuring how they use their money so that their ask could be more appropriate for other funding sources, which we really recommended the Wind River Visitors Council as the place that they go to, because this is a huge tourist draw. These people come from all over the country. They'll spend 2 to 3 nights here. And personally, and I think the rest of the EDGE committee agrees, that they haven't heard about the Art Banner Project, which the art banners are great, but I don't know that the Art Banner Project is a wide tourist attraction. I don't even know that locally it is as well known as it should be, because there's not a lot of signage, there's not a lot of information. You know, they're just beautiful pieces of art throughout our city, which is great, but how is that drawing tourism? So that's why we didn't fund it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now I kind of want to have Wind River Visitors Council come up. Sure, go ahead, Helen.
I didn't mean to start anything. I just
Helen Wilson, Wind River Visitors Council again. So I think we're looking at 2 different funding pools here. One is the lodging tax, which is for marketing, which is things like the Beef Roundup, and the Destination Development Program, which is the Wyoming Office of Tourism, to make the destination appealing to tourists, and beautification and all of that is the Art Banner Project. So two very separate budget lines. Thank you.
Can I ask one more question, Helen, before you leave? So does that mean that it might fit under the, instead of just Riverton TAD funding, that the Wind River Visitor Council extra funding for projects? Is that what it would go under then?
Well, it would be the TAD funding. So, the Beef Roundup would fall in a similar category as like the Brew Fest or a concert, where you have community as well as people coming from outside of the area. So the Beef Roundup fits really, it's the exact definition of the kind of program that the TAD funding is for.
So you're saying just out of the Riverton TAD funding, there's not additional funding?
No, there isn't, because if we did that, then we would have so many different events. And that was why the TAD program is a completely voluntary program. It is something that the Wind River Visitors Council did to give the communities local control of their marketing dollars. So because the event takes place in Riverton, then it absolutely would qualify for the TAD program under Riverton, while, an event in Lander or Du Bois would qualify under their TAD programs. For people who, the Historical Society, if they're doing a bus tour of the entire community and it doesn't fit specifically under one community or another, then that's where people come and apply for money through the Wind River Visitors Council directly.
So even if they're producers coming throughout Fremont County to participate in it?
Well, I'm going to compare it again to a brew fest where brewers come from all over the place, and that has typically been the TAD specific funding. And then the destination development funding is for beautification and for infrastructure and things that are really going to make the community beautiful.
Is there any statutory reason why the lodging tax proceeds couldn't be used for the Riverton Rendezvous Beef Roundup?
Well, they are, but it's through the TAD program. So the 25% of the complete lodging tax is given to the communities to fund events and things like that. So it is the money from the Wind River Visitors Council through the TAD program.
Sure, come on up, tell us your name.
Ryan Preston, Hampton Inn and Suites. I also represent the EDGE committee. So his ask for the $25,000 was for a matching fund to go after a USDA grant, which his ask from the EDGE committee did not meet the requirements because it's a matching fund. which doesn't create jobs, doesn't produce jobs, doesn't really sustain jobs. One, being the hotel guy, I mean, I truly loved and really wanted to try to find a way to support it because it sustained jobs from a hospitality standpoint. Hotels, restaurants, I mean, these events, depending on how big they are and how many people they bring into the community, is going to help hotels, restaurants sustain jobs. Instead of laying people off at the end of a tourism season, we're able to keep jobs based on that. But his ask was for $25,000 matching funds for a USDA grant to be spread over 2 years. And kind of on her side of it, well, is it's not necessarily the way the law is wrote, it's how the Attorney General of the state of Wyoming interprets the way that lodging tax funds can be sold and spent. Now, we can't spend money on bricks and mortar, but we can use it for promoting. We can use it to pay for events, whether it be bringing a band, bringing a big name band. They cannot use the funds based on the way the Attorney General represents his interpretation of the law to actually use it as a, go after a matching fund that violates the law based on the way the Attorney General interprets it. If they want to spend $25,000 to advertise, to promote it, they can. If they want to spend $25,000 to pay for a band, they can. But it's all about the way the Attorney General represents the law.
I got you, and that answers for the Wind River Visitors Council portion, I guess. Part of, I guess, the question, if I'm reading you right, Councilwoman Salisbury, is, I mean, okay, we're not bringing in a job or anything like that. It's a matching fund. We've done matching funds before. That's partly what the hospital was funded using, was that sort of model. But it is bringing net increase of money into the community, and it is bringing in tourism, that kind of thing. So I guess that's part of
I
the...
guess the help from you would be advertising it with your,
Absolutely. We would send out press releases. We would put it in all of our newsletters, industry newsletters, things like that. So we would get the word out. And then and I hadn't realized what the money was going to be used for, but if the event wanted a band or something like that, then that's where the TAD money comes in.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sure, go ahead.
So I just want to clarify, and I think most of you do realize that the 0.5% economic development tax, when we did get that passed, it was always the goal to get matching grants with that, to basically capitalize on that money and make that money, that pot bigger. So to say that we're not going to use that 1/2 for matching grants, that's the total polar opposite of what we hoped that we could do. We want to grow that money. So just want to make that clarification. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, any other discussion on this?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'm just curious, kind of just to piggyback on Christie's question. So the Fremont Local Foods, the ones that weren't able to qualify for the funding, are those the same reasons that you had mentioned before?
Well, I was there when we had the discussion, so we don't have to make everybody come up every time, and Lindsay was there the whole time, so maybe to a certain extent, I could address it, or we could have Mr. Preston.
So Fremont County Foods wanted an awning. That's all they wanted over their building. That's what they went for, and that's what they asked for. So $5,000 for an awning to go over their building.
And if I remember right, the ask was because when the sun is hitting them, they have to keep their meat at temperature, they have to keep the milk, all of that at temperature, and the way that their building faces, they sometimes get a little bit of some heat in there, and so they were wanting an awning that would make it so that they could keep things cooler, I guess. They wanted to be cooler.
Okay.
so you're saying they need to do it.
Yeah.
They need to ask the right.
Yeah, so they weren't, I mean, there was no matching, there was no job creation, which I referred them to the downtowners and the Wyoming Downtowners Beautification Project, because I believe that is something that more applies to what they're asking for. They're looking to make their building more presentable, cool it down, because the heating and cooling system in that building is inadequate for what they're trying to do. But again, it did not meet the statute the way that we looked at it.
So while you're while you're here, how about the Youth Soccer Association?
Soccer Association, everybody was in agreement with trying to fund it, trying to find a way to fund it. The biggest hiccup was they had no documentation. So there's no LOI for the land that they're wanting to purchase from Richard. We wanted to get a look at what the land they were wanting to purchase from Richard, get a letter of intent. And then they were wanting to get a look at some of the infrastructure, what the cost of the infrastructure would. So they were asking for the money, but they didn't provide a lot of documents behind it. The whole committee, I think, agreed it was a great idea to try to fund it, to try to find a way to fund it, but we're asking for more information. So we sent it back to the Soccer Association, said, bring us more information. Let's look at it the next round of voting, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you.
So did leave that open with them to come
Yes,
back once
we
we
did.
get a little
And,
more?
I want to speak for everybody in saying that we're not going to make them reapply. We're just going to hold their application and then bring them back the next time around. So they don't have to go through the whole process.
Okay, sounds fair.
Your Honor, if I can ask a question?
Sure.
Since you're there for the asking. So on the Golden Buffalo project, how does that fit into the thinking? And if this is funded, is there any follow-up down the road to see if we're actually hiring additional staff? Or is this just a one-time, okay, here's the money, and you go? Is there some follow-up to how that money is being expended?
Well, that was actually a great question, because we asked that same question of Mia about the way the contracts are wrote, how the contracts are wrote. I really can't answer that question, but, I mean, Mia is going to be the better one to answer that because it's all wrote into the contract. One of my comments was, I don't think the Edge Committee did a great job of presenting to the community what we're trying to do and where the monies went and why the money went there. I presented a question to me is, making sure that when it's wrote into the contract, that Edge Committee and the Edge funding is being promoted, that's where this money went to and how it went. But Mia is going to be the best one to answer that question because it's all wrote into the contract for how they follow up with it.
I guess the question then is, Ms. Harris, in terms of, I guess what we're talking about is making sure there's accountability. I had the opportunity to read an Arbor Day proclamation this last weekend and met with some of the Little League folks and really appreciated them coming to the council and saying, hey, we haven't spent the money you gave us yet. And we want to make sure that you approve what we're going to do with it. And, just the thought in terms of accountability when we're giving money out, that it's being spent how we're asking for it to be spent. So what has been the mechanism we've used in the past for that, Harris?
These agreements were formerly handled by our previous city administrator, so just through reading the previous contracts, there were some contingencies that were built into them that specified that they were only to spend the money on what they applied for, that they needed to provide us financial reports or reporting of how the money was spent. If the money was not spent according to the terms, then they would be required to repay the money. And we can certainly put those contingencies into all the future contracts also.
So we would still have that accountability and.
And one of the things that we talked about in our last meeting, and specifically Mia Harris, was they have to provide payroll records, if I wasn't sure.
That was in one of the agreements, yes.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Any other questions or?
The only thing I would say is if it is allowable for matching fund, I think we should consider amending the motion to add some money to the Rendezvous Beef Roundup.
Well, I guess the question then, if we're wanting to do that, is being able to analyze that. Is it increasing, a net increase of money into the community? Are we gaining or maintaining jobs? I mean, that's the standard. That's just the question for the council. If that's what you think, then we can amend it. We can change it however we'd like.
Do I need to make the amendment or just?
I'm just waiting for any other discussion. I'm just here. I'm here all night.
Your Honor,
Yes.
doing some quick math also, we had 339,000 available, and the total ask was 278. So that would leave an available of 61,000 left for this particular round.
So if there were a desire to do that, we have the money for it. Okay.
I just think it's a great draw for the community, and if it's matching, if it's allowable, I think it would be a good idea. did to support it. But
How much was there asked for?
25. It was for 25% of 100,000 USDA grant. And I don't even,
was that the one that they needed, like a $18,000 match to be able to get the grant?
and I don't even know if they need 25, because if I recall the discussion, some of it was that hours could be used for that. So 25 was the total, but they might already have volunteer hours that would cut some of that off. And you're nodding, if that's right, I recall that.
How would we find that out?
Well, we could have them come here.
Okay.
I mean, the reality is, we can approve this funding at any time. I mean, we've got it set right now for the presentation and everything today. If we wanted to put this on a future agenda just to consider that portion of it, we can do that.
I think that's the better idea.
Or we can wait until, I mean, if we wait until the next time it opens, it might be too late, because that, I don't know. They probably would want the money now, because part of it's being used for marketing and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we'd want to get it addressed immediately.
But if we've got extra money on the side,
Sure.
we can proportion that out.
But we could also build into it the same sort of contingency. If they've already got hours, for example, if they've got volunteer hours that operate to make that less than 25, then we would say this is up to this amount. But if you've got stuff that fits
Okay.
the matching portion of it, then we're not going to pay for that.
No.
That could be built into the contract.
Okay.
The one thing I was going to say is, one of the contracts in specifically does have a timeline writing on this. They are going to be headed to a convention. And some of this funding and the machinery that they're looking to buy is dependent on them being able to say that they do have this. So there's future contracts on the line, especially for brown sugar coffee roasters, who's actually heading to a conference 2 weeks? In 2 weeks. And if they don't have some of this funding in place to say they have this, they could potentially lose out on contracts, future contracts.
It's my understanding Brown Sugar doesn't have a location that'll fit the roaster that they were wanting. Is this what we're talking about?
We didn't award the roaster. So it was a 70-kilo roaster. That's not what we were recommending. It was the packaging and the K-Cup packager, I believe.
Okay. Which can be used in the space that they're in with the roaster they have?
Yeah, it can, but we purchased a new building.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, just future reference. And the beef roundup, it was one job that was going to be created, but it was created after the awarding of the USDA grant. So they're looking to hire one facilities manager, I believe was what it was. I might be wrong on that, but it is one employee that they are looking to hire.
Well, and on page 83, it says that it is a minimum funding estimate's approximately 18,000.
Okay.
So it could even be that to help obtain the USDA grant, is what they're saying they need.
Gotcha.
But, Your Honor, we could approve what they recommend today, and then we could come back and approve an additional amount later if we decided we wanted to do that. So that wouldn't affect any of the current applicants that are approved.
Right.
And so I think any time-critical issues could be alleviated. And then I have one other question on the Golden Buffalo. So, Kip, I see that you are listed here as vice president. Who's the president?
Janet, my wife.
Okay. Okay. Congratulations. I guess, to me, just in full disclosure, I guess, and I don't know if you guys brought this up at the Edge Committee, but if Janet is on the Edge Committee and you got your project approved, I think at least it needs to be disclosed that Janet is part owner of the Golden Buffalo.
And that was,
And I'm all for the project and everything, but I think it needs to be disclosed of exactly how that works, so that everybody goes in 100% knowing.
and I agree with you. That was something that was discussed. There was a lot of connections between a lot of the different projects. And I think our Edge Committee did quite well when they were discussing, saying, hey, this is something that I have this involvement in it, and so I don't want to be a part of the vote when it comes to this. And so I agree with you, though. that we want to make sure that that sort of stuff is disclosed. And I think that was done. I wasn't it,
Yeah, that was done.
so.
Okay. So just for everybody watching,
Transparency.
that everybody knows. Yeah.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
just a quick question, and maybe members of the committee would have the answer. When it comes to the beef roundup and the USDA grant that's been referenced, I think it would be helpful to know what the status is of that grant, if it's been applied for, if they're waiting to apply, and it's contingent on receiving funds, and then specifically what the grant would be paid for. On 91 of your packet, it does state that this is going to be very helpful to bring in speakers, celebrity chefs, musicians, and attendee gifts. And then I think, as is already mentioned, they were hoping to have an employee that would support the event as well. But again, this is a long-term grant, 2-year grant, so I think understanding the status of that grant would help you make a decision as to whether or not using the EDGE funds or the half-cent funds would meet basically your 2 goals of bringing money to the community and creating jobs.
Well, I agree with Mike. I think we can act on the other ones and bring that back, and maybe they could come present to us sooner than the next round.
It might,
Whatever.
that might make sense to just have them come and present to the council. I mean, the EDGE committee had already heard them, and they could just come here, and we could kind of be like a follow-up interview. Second panel, I don't know. Okay. Do we have any other discussion? Are we ready to vote? What is your pleasure?
Let's vote.
Okay.
Call the question.
All in favor of directing staff to prepare funding agreements for approval based on the recommendations of the EDGE committee, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Aye, man. I vote aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. That actually was relatively short, but we got through a lot of questions. So I really appreciate the EDGE committee being here and our applicants being here to answer questions. Thank you. And of course, Helen Wilson, who stepped in to answer a random question.
And for building our community, thank you.
Yes, definitely, that's true. All right, next one up is a bid award for pavement preservation project, Public Works Director report.
Thank you, Your Honor and Council. Before you tonight is a request for a bid award on our 2023 pavement preservation project. At the discretion of the Force Committee, they wanted to allocate up to $1 million to take care of pavement in the city that has been recently treated or replaced in the last 10 years. This preservation project is a treatment that helps with the UV issues and water reflection. We put the project out to bid on March 1st, 2023, received bids on April 10th. We had one bidder, and the bid came in at $1.5 million, give or take, 50% over our allocated amount. At that point, Force and City began negotiating with 71 Construction, who was the only bidder. And we modified the bid schedule a little bit and took some of the chip sealing, took all the chip sealing out and all of the concrete repairs out of the project and made it strictly a slurry seal project with the addition of some full depth repairs on poor asphalt areas that are potholing all over the city. These were more major repairs that required heavy-duty equipment and actually full-depth reclamation. The bid, after the change, came in at $721,274.88. We've already identified several areas. You've seen on the map, the maps provided that after deleting the chip sealing project, we were able to expand the pavement preservation project to some other areas that were in need of as well, but not to the extent that they needed a chip seal. We'd be able to maintain them and extend their life with just the slurry seal. Would be our recommendation to have the council please approve this request, and we'll get moving on it. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to award 71 Construction in the amount of $721,274.88 for the 2023 pavement preservation project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Bailey, second by Councilwoman Cox. Discussion or questions or entertaining anecdotes?
Your Honor,
Councilman Larson?
how did which areas did we just pick the worst ones, the bomb center blowouts, or how are we determining where to repair?
For the pothole repairs,
Yeah, yes,
Operations Division Manager and his operations supervisor, along with the city engineer, traveled around the city and identified areas that required the full depth repairs.
okay.
Many of the other repairs, they look bad, but we can basically deal with them with our own staff. So we took the worst of the worst.
So we're given 71, the choicest repairs, dang hard ones, and we're going to do the gravy ones.
Yes.
Good.
How we do things. Any other discussion? Chip sealing's that expensive, huh?
Aggregate, for some reason, this project wasn't significant in the extent that it would cover a lot of area. It was like 50,000 square yards, which seems like a lot, but that's not a big crushing operation. So mobilizing a crusher and those activities was driving up the cost significantly.
And but we were able to expand where we were originally discussing for the slurry seal then.
Correct. There were some areas that really do need a chip seal, but that some of the other areas were teetering on that point where a slurry seal would be as effective in extending the life of those roads for some time down the road.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions, amendments? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 I vote aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Consultant selection for the airport master plan. City administrators report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're currently in the process of updating the master plan for Central Wyoming Regional Airport. The plan that we have in place was completed in November of 2011. These plans typically run for 10 to 15 years as far as how they project out improvements, and so we're definitely due for an update. The project will be funded in part by the FAA and YDOT Aeronautics. And I think it's important to note that planning for the future of our local airport is important, and making sure we set it up for success is important. We know that $21 million is brought into our community just from the commercial air service alone from that airport. So this master plan will allow us to look for the next 10, 15, and 20 years to keep our airport successful and sustainable. The FAA does put requirements on master planning processes. There are several advisory circulars that speak to the consultant selection process and then the actual composition of the master plan itself. The advisory circular that speaks to the master plan says that you have to have an AGIS survey, which is a GIS survey done at your airport. You have to have public involvement. You have to consider environmental conditions, aviation forecasts, facility requirements. And that is our commercial side and our general aviation side. Airport layout plan set, facility implementation plan, funding analyses, and then financial feasibility. We solicited statements of qualification of interested firms on March 24th, 2023. 3 firms responded to the RFQ, and a selection committee was appointed to review them against 5 weighted criteria. These criteria were completeness of the submittal, experience of the firm in airport planning, qualifications of the project team, past experience working with YDOT and the FAA, and then comprehensive understanding of the project requirements in the airport. The committee consisted of 2 staff members, 2 airport board members, and a city council member. After they went through their review of the SOQs, the ranking was really tight. Aviation Planning Group submitted and received an average of 98 points out of 110. HDR received 96 out of 110, and JViation received 102 out of 110. Because of this tight spread and the high performance of each of these consultants, the committee decided to perform interviews with the top 2 rated firms. And they performed those interviews just this last Friday. Each of the 2 firms had 30 minutes to present their qualification, their understanding of the project, and we provided them information and details as outlined in your packet of what we wanted to hear from them during that interview. I think the most important thing I could say today is we have very qualified firms in our area, and I think those that served on the selection committee had a very hard time selecting the firm to recommend to you today. There were 4 weighted criteria from the interview, and after the team individually rated the presentations and then spoke together, Aviation Planning Group received 48 points out of 50, and JViation received 50 out of 50. Again, a very, very tight selection. We do have we have a representative from one of the submitting firms in the audience today, and I just want to say thank you for their interest and their time, because they did a very good job, as did the other firm. After having gone through the interviews and after having ranked and reviewed the submittals of qualification, the selection committee recommends to you that JViation be selected to move forward in this selection process. As outlined by the FAA, once the most qualified firm is selected, staff then goes and negotiates a scope of work and a fee. We then are required to take that fee and compare it against an independent firm to ensure that we're receiving an appropriate price. So at this time, we're asking that you direct staff to begin that process with JViation. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve JViation as the firm for the airport master plan and direct staff to finalize a scope of work and negotiate a fee for services.
So moved.
Second.
Third.
We'll say Councilman Paranto has the motion, and I guess we'll have a very late second with Councilwoman Salisbury. Maybe we could say it's Bronson. That's what we could put together.
I thought
All right.
maybe you guys would change it to second. You didn't, so I did.
Yeah. We got to be faster, I guess.
I was going to.
Any discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
you should be asking this question, but I'm gonna. So are we ever going to have a larger, bigger, better, or what the footprint we have is what we're going to have?
Well, that's a good question. Mr. Butterfield?
Your Honor, Councilman, is that in regard to the terminal?
It's regard to the airport.
Sure.
Like more planes or more
Well,
runways or more buildings?
it describes how long the runway is. The cross runway is smaller. Is that what it is? It is what it is, or with the future 10 years in advance, we're going to have 747s flying in here at some point in time because the uranium is going to be extracted like you can't believe, and we're going to be the center of the world for natural gas.
Your Honor, we needed to have Councilman Larson on the selection committee, I think. I like the way he's thinking. The quick answer is, yeah, we will look at every growth opportunity. Even in our master plan that's in place right now, there's provisions to extend the crosswind runway so that we have a little bit more length on that. The nice thing is our primary runway, runway 1028, can handle a 737. Our runway's longer than Jackson's runway. Not a lot of people know that. So from a runway and infrastructure standpoint, we're sitting very strong. Where we need to improve is our commercial terminal is too small. It was built prior to 9/11. We need a hold room that's bigger, and we need to invest in our general aviation side. I would like to see more hangars at the airfield. I'd like to see general aviation terminal so that we can have self-serve fuel. Very good. But anything we can do to attract general aviation in transit flights will sell more fuel, will make Riverton and Fremont County, I think, more prevalent on the map. And our consultant will help us address all of these items as they look forward.
When I travel through Cody, I notice there is a boatload of hangars, spaces up there. And Cody does quite well on its transportation. So, you know, I just, 737 would be nice.
Your Honor, it would. I think we'll start maybe with a 70-seat jet next and then keep growing from there.
Thank you.
I think it's funny you said a boatload when we're talking about airlines. And I mean, everything in Wyoming is landlocked, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
Your Honor, I would like to mention that our airport really, in terms of other airports and comparing it to similar-sized communities, our airport really is fantastic. And our staff up there does a great job. You know, you do have some issues with crosswinds, but the runways are designed and engineered for the majority of the prevailing winds. And depending on the size of aircraft that you bring in, you may not be able to land that on the crosswind. So there's width requirements as well as length requirements. But suffice it to say that most larger aircraft can land on our existing long runway.
And now you know. And also maybe military jets could land on the highway. I don't know.
And they apparently do.
They do. Did it yesterday. Or
Today.
Your Honor, with all of our experienced people on the board, we probably need to open a flight school so we can get more pilots.
Be great. I've told my kids, my oldest is 16, turning 17 this year, and I've said, there's a shortage of pilots and it's set to continue.
We have teachers right here.
Good opportunity to,
And tell you what, if you're really interested and you happen to be female, there are some additional opportunities to help bring young women into aviation and become pilots as well.
and now you know. You have to be young, though.
Yeah, no.
Helps.
It helps. Actually, because commercial pilots tend to age out at about 65. If you're an airline, you might not be looking at the 50-plus-year-olds to start a career, but you might be aiming your sights more at the 20-year-old to start their career.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's logistics there.
Makes sense.
Where are the local schools for pilots?
You know, there are schools all over the nation. Here in Riverton, we do have a couple of pilots that are instructors as well. One of our biggest problems is actually finding an aircraft to teach in. So there are a few that pass through, but Art happens to be one of the instructors here locally, and he has actually, I don't know how many students he has now, but he's got a few usually under his wing, so to speak, at any time.
See, that's the kind of expressions you should use. We don't use boatloads when we're talking about airplanes or hangars. All right. Were we ready to vote then? We good? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes. Well, that gets us to the end of our agenda in record time. Council committee reports, council members roundtable. We don't often start with people that aren't on the ends, and so I'd like to do that just to make things entertaining. I don't know if it makes it any more entertaining. I think we started with you last time I did this. No?
I think you did start with me last.
I think I did. So we should start with Councilman Larson, just to mix things up.
Me?
You.
Boatloads, Larson?
Boatloads, Larson.
Yeah, we got a voice and the only, I have a meeting on Friday with tribal government on solid waste contracting, and hopefully they will be there at, well, last time the meeting started at 10 o'clock, they showed up at 11. So it's kind of interesting when you go out there to meet with the tribes. And only half showed up, so. But what the real deal is we pay $250,000 to the joint tribes to maintain their own collection of solid waste. And they're losing money on it because they're choosing not to charge. And they're choosing not to charge people for, and so they're losing money because they're paying it out in overhead and not receiving any for solid waste or any of their metal materials which you can recover and resell, and they get all of that themselves. So if they're listening, I encourage them to do the right thing. Join the club.
Be part of the cool kids.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Salisbury?
I attended a chamber meeting and have a few document things that I'll share with you guys. Most of the conversation was, we'll be putting out a job description for a new director for the chamber, and that was quite a bit of the meeting, and so that's kind of exciting. Move forward, and then some ideas on what they want to do at the Wind River Heritage Center. They want to move some of the stuff when you first walk in, some of the animals and things, back to more where the wax museum is, to protect them from the heat from up above, and remodel that area so groups can use it more and just make it more attractive as people are coming into the community. So that was most of the meeting.
Cool. This is really well done. There you go. Thank
Julie's
you.
not here, she could explain those better, but.
Oh, she did leave.
So,
Great. Well, I do know part of what they've been wanting to talk about is telling the story better of the reservation and being able to, I mean, and in all reality, a lot of the tradition is centered around, it's an oral tradition, really, for the most part. And so I think it's a really good way to be able to respect, you know, their traditions and that sort of thing, to be able to have that be a part of it. And I think that's been a really good push. Well, thank you. All right. Councilwoman Borders.
Your Honor, the only committee meeting I've had was finance tonight, but I did want to go over the Go Riverton website. There's some really good things on here. A couple good things happening this weekend. There's a pause yard sale. I don't know, yard sale, garage sale. It's across the street beside Digits there in the old Sears building. They've been taking donations and getting everything ready, so make sure to check that out. And then also the Friends of the Library are having a yard sale. And that'll be up at the library this coming Friday and Saturday. Fridays from 11 to 6, Saturdays from 8 to noon. They are still taking donations. May 3rd from 3 to 6, or contact a member friend of the Friends of the Library. There's a lot of really good information on events that are going on. GoRiverton.com. There's a free acupuncture clinic for veterans the first Monday of the month. Trying to find stuff that hasn't already happened. The Wednesday Farmers Market will be starting up again soon. The Riverton FFA plant sale. The kids up there work really hard growing plants, and I don't think a lot of people know that there's a greenhouse up there. And they're going to be selling plants actually today after their banquet, and then May 5th, 6th, and 9th. So check out GoRiverton.com and get some more information on that. One other thing I want to mention real quick is the field work day down at the girls' bass pitch fields. It's going to happen Saturday at 10 in the morning, so if you're able to help and you have a strong back and you like to rake and shovel, go on down to the softball field, and I'll just stop there.
That sounds great. That's at 10 this Saturday, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you, Councilwoman Borders. Councilwoman Cox.
Okay, I missed the rec board meeting last night because I triple booked myself with my kid's schedule, so hopefully Dean can fill us in on that. I was really happy to be part of the Edge Committee meetings. I thought that was really beneficial to hear the discussion, and I appreciate them coming tonight. I have to commend them on them recommending other sources for those people that didn't meet the requirements. They weren't just like, no, they shared where they should talk to other people, and Kevin Krzyznik was here, and he also shared some valuable information with them, so that was great. Served breakfast with Mike at the Boys and Girls Club last week, and that was always nice to see people bright and early. I think they had a record turnout, but like 400 people serving eggs too, so it was nice to see everybody bright and early. The senior center, or the senior endowment, will meet later this month on the 18th. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Councilman Bailey.
Okay. I got to attend the airport board meeting with Dean. I'll let him go into all the gory details, but we were up at the airport and they installed the new TSA equipment and stuff, so that's going to be a lot smoother process. So, you know, the long waiting line at Riverton or Central Wyoming Regional should be shorter now, but they're doing some good stuff, and our numbers are holding up well, so I think, you know, the airport's doing very well. I also, like Lindsay said, we did the Boys and Girls Club meeting, and yeah, it was close to 400 people there, and they raised about $133,000 for the Boys and Girls Club, which they are gaining attendance as they go, just lots of great programs that they present for the community, some after-school stuff. They've got summer programs. You know, they've been doing a great job in the couple of years we've had them here. So I think, again, Riverton and Fremont County showed how generous they were, and we had lots of people come out and support really well. So it was a great morning at 4 a.m., getting up, ready, cooking eggs and bacon and all that good stuff. So
It tasted good.
it was good, yes.
Councilman Paranto?
Your Honor, thank you. I wanted to express my appreciation for the work that the city staff did and Kyle and his staff did on the selection committee for the airport master plan. That process was really pretty neat. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there on Friday, kind of during the final selection. I had to make a marathon trip out to California and back, which also meant that I missed the rec board meeting by the time I got back, and I ended up doing a red eye and then driving home from Salt Lake. So by the time they extended the meeting from 7 to 7:30, I was toast and didn't make it. But I did make the 21st of April meeting, the airport board meeting, and we did get the tour, as Mike said, of the new screening equipment, which means that really, as you fly out of Riverton, you really don't have to take your jacket off. You don't have to take your laptop and all your electronics out of your bags, because the machine is really a kind of a CAT scanner. So they can take your luggage and they can turn it and look at it, and it has a lot of automation and built-in detection mechanisms, so that if there's something nefarious in your bag, it can kind of highlight those areas that the TSA agent needs to look at and spend a little bit more time. But really, they have about 30 seconds to look at a bag, and the new equipment gives them a lot more capability to get those bags flowing through the system, which means as we get larger flights in Riverton, you get those people through there in kind of the allotted amount of time. So really neat, pretty cool to see that. They were kind of kids in a candy store, you know, showing us their equipment and how cool it is, and they built a test bag to kind of run through there to kind of show us what it looks like. And it was neat, just to give you an idea, they had an orange, and you know how you have the separated skins between the pieces of an orange? You could actually see those outlined in the on the screens, to the point where you could actually look at the pits in an apple, the seeds in an apple. So the machine is really very detailed and gives them a really amazing graphical representation of what's in your bag. So travel carefully, my friends, because someone knows. So, no, it really is pretty neat, but really it tends to be a time saver in getting people through there. And in talking about bringing in larger flights, our room now will support 50 or so people, but they did talk about some plans they have for loading the aircraft and scanning passengers at the same time, so you could actually get more people through the terminal building, even though you can't sit them all in that room. So they've kind of pre-thought that, and I was kind of enlightened by that because as we have visions of larger aircraft in and out of Riverton, it makes some sense. So the last thing, and it's a little bit premature, but on the 9th of September, we're scheduled for our open house fly-in. Preparations for that are ongoing, and we are alternating years with Landers. So they're planning on doing the car show. It's like a wings and wheels kind of a thing to draw people up to the airport. And this year, it's going to be more of a static display, although our airport manager is looking at getting some military flights to at least overfly, if not actually land. So that's all I have, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Butterfield, how have you been sleeping lately?
Well, the question is how it'll be moving forward, I guess.
Last night was fine, right? Tonight,
Last night was-
we'll see.
I just have a few items. Just want to confirm that next week's work session will be at 6 PM. Does that still work for the council? Okay. And then we will have a special meeting on the 23rd as well this month, and that will be our budget presentation to you. Would you like to meet at 7 o'clock, or would you like to meet earlier for that?
I vote for 7.
I vote
Oh, for 7?
7 is fine.
Split the difference, 6:30.
6:30?
Well, I can't be here till 6:30 next week. You don't have to reschedule for me, but I will be late.
Okay.
Your Honor, we can.
2 for the late version.
That's what you like.
We could go to 6:30. Do we want to do that for next week?
Yeah.
So back to,
No,
backing up from,
The 23rd.
no. She's talking about next week now. She's changing the
Sorry,
topic.
I'm sorry. I just, it took me that long to go through my schedule.
So you're talking about the 9th?
Yes.
The special
The 9th,
meeting?
he was just telling you it was at 6:30. Councilwoman Cox says she can't be here till
Well,
6:30. He was saying 6. Do we want to change that to
Mike wants
6:30?
it at 7.
Well, next week I'll be out of town, so you don't worry about me.
Oh, okay.
Don't work around Mike. 6:30, 7, do we really care? Part of the reason we've said 6 in the past is that it makes it kind of difficult for staff to be here and go back and then come back, and it's helpful for them to be able to do things at 6, if we can. I mean, it's not something we have to do. There's also the community to consider. They want to be here and attend, and sometimes 7's a little bit easier to attend than 6 is, so. But next week, we were talking about 6. If 6:30 works for the rest of the council and for staff, maybe we do 6:30 to make sure Councilwoman Cox can be here, whoever you are.
So 6:30 on the 9th.
Yes. All right, now, back to the 23rd.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. When do we want to meet on the 23rd?
7 sounds good.
I think that's a budget where we want input from the community.
Okay.
And I'm sorry for the staff, but
Your Honor, 7 o'clock works fine for us. It's okay.
okay.
All right, 7 o'clock then for the 23rd.
Thank you. I appreciate that coordination. The other item I wanted to bring up is we do have a force meeting, the Fix Our Road Citizen Committee. That will be this upcoming Monday at 11 o'clock, and that meets in the bullpen area. And then my wife had a baby today.
Congratulations.
So, Emily Ann, going to be her name. And she was born at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm happy to go back to her tonight, so.
Why are you here?
And geez, how long and how much did she weigh?
All right, so here are the statistics. 19 inches long, 7 pounds, 11.2 ounces, and she's beautiful.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll try to get you out of here.
Oh, my goodness. Aw,
I am.
she is beautiful.
Oh, wow.
You didn't go with Rua.
No, he didn't.
It was close. You should tell people about why I said that. You'd do better than I would.
If that's okay, Your Honor. About 6 months ago, our 5-year-old decided that the baby would be named Rua, and that was how she arranged the letters on the fridge that day. And ever since that time, it's been Baby Rua. She has asked, she draws pictures for Rua in her prayers. She asked that Baby Rua is okay, so she may be a little disappointed that it's going to be Emily.
You know what? You can nickname a kid anything you want, though. And grade school students do it all the time.
So do siblings.
So do siblings. Anything else, Mr. Butterfield?
No, thank you.
Well, congratulations. I hope you were okay with the fact that I was showing off the picture of Rua just a minute ago. And I'm still going to call her that. Cute. All right. Well, everybody buckle in because I'm going to be talking for like an hour.
He needs to go see Rua.
I'll be quick. I was really excited to be able to go to the EDGE meeting. I didn't get to see all of it, but I was really impressed with our EDGE group. We've got a really good group. They were looking at things from all angles. It really made it easy to be talking about that today. And, I mean, that's a volunteer thing. It's very much just a community service thing. And so making it so that the council could sit here and talk about it for 20 minutes rather than listening to every single presentation, which I wouldn't mind. I mean, that's great. But making it so we didn't have to listen to every presentation and they could kind of boil it down, give us reasons, all of that. Very appreciated and very, very much appreciated. I got a chance to go to something I've been looking forward to for a little while, which was the soft opening for the Ichiban Hibachi Grill. I lived in Japan for a couple of years. I really like Japanese food, and that was fun. Very excited to have a new business in town.
How was it?
It was great. Yeah, it was very good. I enjoyed it. We've had a lot of budget meetings. Those are always enjoyable. We had the Rampage Rumble, which brought a lot of people into our community just this last week, and I really appreciate all the work that went into that and was very proud of our youth and how they showed up for that and how well they did. So that was just excellent, and I mean, when we were talking a little bit about the Youth Soccer Association and their funding, I was glad to hear that the EDGE Committee has kind of left that open for consideration down the road, because that really does do a lot for our community, for our local businesses to have people come in to town and enjoy Riverton like we do, even if it's just for a day or two.
Your Honor.
Yes.
And also appreciate Councilman Bailey. There was 1,100 participants, and he funded a lot of ice packs and different things and always contributes. So there's 1,100 people playing and all their families. That tells you what kind of an event it was, so.
I have been at about 3 events this last week that had Bailey Enterprises water that I'm sure was donated. And so, yes, I think you do a lot, and I appreciate it.
It's great to encourage people to come to town and enjoy themselves, and we have a wonderful community.
I agree. I got a chance to go to a time capsule. I thought they were going to open it, but they opened it a couple of years ago, and they were just displaying it from 1970. Man, what was it, 1977 or 78 or 79? It was so long ago, I don't even know. I'm just kidding.
It's because you weren't there.
Wall.
Anyway, it was great. We were able to look at some old pictures. They had put a Coke bottle in there, because this was like grade school students or middle school students, junior high, I guess, who put a Coke bottle in there. Well, lo and behold, Coke bottles not a bottle, it was a can. They don't stay that long, and so it spilled all over, so some of it had some Coke damage on it, not, Coca-Cola damage on it. It was really fun to look at what, junior high kids considered important at the time. Like, they had a list of all the slang words that they use, and the idea behind it was, in the future they might not be using these slang words, but I use them all. Made me laugh. My kids laughed too. I went to the Ag Banquet. That was a really good opportunity. I guess just to recognize who they recognized. Ag Woman of the Year was Tricia Martin. Ag Man of the Year, Dale Hamilton. Young Ag Person of the Year was Sean Weber. Ag Couple of the Year was Brian and Marty Warner. Ag Service of the Year, Kathy Meyer. And then Ag Business of the Year, Rocky Mountain Logistics. So that was a really good opportunity. Really enjoyed that. We've went through FCAG. I was actually supposed to do a jury trial last Thursday, but the gentleman who had pled not guilty and wanted to persist in his not guilty plea came in, saw that I was ready for trial, and decided to plead. And so we didn't have a jury trial, so we were able to go to the FCAG meeting. So that was a good opportunity to go to that. So, I guess other than that, I really enjoyed the chocolate affair this last weekend. It was a very fun fundraiser. They had just so many different things. Kids had a lot of fun. They had a carnival for the kids, and I just really appreciated it. The Seroptimists did an excellent job. It's definitely something that I want to go back to with my family, and the chocolate was very good too. It was just a fun time. We had a potluck talking about the Fremont local market that I went to. Good opportunity. We heard from Tim Salazar and some of the other folks that were involved in that. It was a very well-attended event. I also really enjoyed going and listening to the CWC band just a couple of nights ago. They do good work, and there's a lot of people and a lot of folks that have very talented people that live in Riverton, and I really enjoyed that. So anyway, I didn't want to have this be a travel log, but I did want to bring note to some of these things that had been going on. Riverton has a lot of stuff going on, and I imagine it's just going to keep going now that it's actually warmer. So looking forward to it. Did you have something, Ms. Harris?
I do, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The Riverton Kiwanis Club is hosting their 14th annual Books and Breakfast this Saturday at St. Margaret's School Gym from 8 to 10. Free breakfast for the families and free books for all the children. There will be prizes and vendor booths Saturday from 8 to 10 at St. Margaret's Gym.
Thank you.
Oh, Molly of Denali will be their guest this year. It's a PBS mascot.
Okay. I don't watch PBS as much as I used to, but I've got a 2-year-old that maybe I'll be watching it more. Great. Thank you for that. I knew that there was an upcoming event that I wanted to highlight, and I appreciate that. All right. Well, that's it. If there's no other business, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilwoman Borders,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Salisbury.
something. I was gonna, but I was waiting on you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. We are adjourned at 8:37.
All those other soccer teams liked our weather better than yours.
I bet they did.
But if adjourn is on.